This is the prophet Joel, chapter 3, verse 9, and it reads, Proclaim ye this amongst the Gentiles, prepare war, wake up the mighty man, let all the men of war draw near, and let them come up. The prophet Joel, chapter 3, verse 10, beat your plowshares and the swords and the plenty hooks at the spears, and let the weak say I'm strong. This is it's the book of Ecclesiasticus, chapter 3, verse 8. It says, in a times of love, in a time of HATE, in a time of war, in a time of peace. Shalom. First and foremost, I'd like to give all praises and glory and honor to Yahweh Ba'Hashem, Yahweh Shai Ba'Hashem HaKarkadash. Barakatham to the elders, Wa'akim Wa'akraf, and I say Shalom.
On the French coast, veterans and their families are preparing to mark 80 years since the pivotal invasion of Normandy on June 6th. At the same time, NATO, the military alliance created in the shadow of World War II, kicked off its annual military exercises in the Baltic Sea. It's an expansive and multinational effort. 19 countries, 9,000 personnel with more than 50 ships and 85 aircraft. Sweden has participated before, but this will be the first time the country takes part as a full-fledged NATO member. Charles Kupchan joins me now. He's a senior fellow at the Council on Foreign Relations and a professor of international affairs at Georgetown University. Charles, good to be with you again. The U.S. and NATO gave Ukraine the go-ahead to strike Russian territory near Kharkiv with Western-made weapons. How significant a move was that, both militarily and symbolically?
Well, I think militarily it was an important step forward, mainly because the Russians were hitting Kharkiv and areas in northern Ukraine from safe havens across the border in Russia. The Ukrainians had some artillery, some drones, some other items that they could use to hit Russian targets in Russian territory. But by telling the Ukrainians that they can use longer range American, German, French kinds of weapons, they're basically pushing the Russians further away from the border. And it's a sign that incrementally, month by month, the United States, its allies, are getting more comfortable moving up the ladder of escalation. I think Biden has been right to be prudent and to move carefully. He's not said you can hit anywhere in Russia. He's said only a small number of targets across the border. I think it's an important step forward.
So you mentioned Vladimir Putin. He used statements from NATO leaders or leaders of NATO countries as a pretext of his recent testing of tactical nuclear weapons. How does the alliance have to calibrate both avoiding conflict with respect to those Western missiles being used on Russian territory and also with this exercise going on? Is Putin going to do what he's going to do, or do they have to take extra measures to risk giving him a pretext?
Well, listen, there's a major war going on in a central part of Europe, and were NATO and Russia to find themselves at war, the consequences could be catastrophic. Two nuclear-armed blocs going against each other. And as a consequence, the U.S. has taken the lead in exercising restraint. The Russians have gone out of their way not to provoke that wider war. They have not hit targets in NATO territory. But, this is a tense moment. As you noted, this is a major exercise occurring in the Baltic region, very close to Russian territory. 9,000 personnel, 50 ships, lots of aircraft. Putin invaded Ukraine in part because he wanted to roll back the post-Cold War order. He's getting the opposite, a bigger NATO, a reinforcement of NATO's eastern flank. So things have not gone well for Putin, but he is also trying to use nuclear saber rattling to say, don't push me too far. You never know where this war could go.
And I don't know what the French term for saber rattling is, but French President Macron has suggested NATO be prepared to put troops in Ukraine at some point. How do you view that? Is he alone in that? Is that Macron's kind of bluster? How do you read that talk?
I would say that Macron's a bit over his skis here, which he tends to do. He likes to say things that get a rise out of everybody. I think the red line for the United States from the beginning has been no American boots on the ground. we are not going to war with Russia over Ukraine. If the French were to proceed with or without other NATO allies, I'm guessing that those troops would be far from the front line. They would be in a supporting role, but it would put French NATO troops in harm's way. Were they to be hit, it would not automatically invoke NATO's collective defense provisions, but it would be a big step forward to put boots on the ground. My guess is we're not going to see it anytime soon.
Charles Kupchan with the Council on Foreign Relations. Thanks again, Charles.